Yeah.
Well, good morning. Today is the last day of January, January 31st, 2023. And we are in this series, we're looking to go through the laws and see how they connect. As the Alliance presents us the laws, over a period of time, I think there is a gap. But within that, we're not seeing how the laws are connected and why they're in the order that they're in. So the very first law that we receive is the law of the architect. And then it's the law of open cycle. I'm sorry, law of exchange, and then law of open cycles. And then we get into this law that we're in today, which is the principle of present. So the principle of present for me, I've alluded to it last week and I've alluded to it in the first law, but I think it's very, very critical that we always be present in the moment. If we're not present in the moment, we are really inherently possibly creating a criminal exchange. Because if we ask for someone's time and they're not there, or you're not there, we're taking time from them. And time is the one thing that no one has more of than someone else. We all have the same amount of time. And I wanted that to simmer for a moment is that with the time, we have to be be courteous of that. And with that, we have to know what we're the architect of or what our skills, passions, or talents may be to help that person overcome a pain point or solve a problem that they're looking to be solved. If you're looking just to pitch them an idea that's going to create another path, that might be fine. And it's great to do it with friends and family. But if you're truly looking to level up, you have to almost think of every relationship as a business relationship. And some people might think that's a little cold. And I don't want to think of it as cold. I want to think of it as being courteous of what time we have and how to leverage every moment that we're given. Because the as I say leverage, that gets into further of the laws. But the principle of present is truly one of these things that I say the principle of present and the principle of perseverance are two things that I truly try to live by, because it's hard. And in the law of open cycles, we talked about doing an inventory of your open cycles. But the principle present ties directly into that. If you're present in that moment, just like we're present here, and I see several of you taking notes, which is awesome. You don't have to write that down. But uh, with that, you're truly trying to make an impact, not only for yourself but for the other person. Um, and when doing that, I think in the fast-paced world that we live in of social media with instant gratification, and everyone's becoming more conditioned to listen to reply as opposed to listen and learn. And in the principle of present, if we can truly be there to listen and learn, um, we can then, one, better help ourselves in what we're the architect of, and then also make sure that we're not opening up additional cycles, but also be a value or a resource for the person on the other side of us. Um, Last week, I got offered an invitation to go meet with 37 of the local mayors here in Georgia. Some of the mayors are from fairly large cities, 200,000 people down to 27,000 people, so the cities range in different size. But for me, when I went there, they were like, hey, this might be good for you. Just go and learn. And I like talking it because I'm a people person. But as I sat there yesterday for 4.5 hours in this room with all these amazing people, mayors and other people, I was able to sit back and just listen and take in and hear the same problems from different people. But unfortunately, I was hearing the same problem, but I was not the solution provider. So it put me in a position where I'd stayed silent until something became more visible or clear of a solution, or at least something to explore that might be in a solution. And for me, as the architect of ProSense, the architect of what I like to call the trades industries, um, it was a challenge because I tend to know so many people in this space, but because it's an area that I don't spend a lot of time in, I don't have the resources from, it put me in a position of crap, my law of exchange, I've created a great exchange, a great network of people that I can help level up, and I can also receive the benefits of that. But in that same regard, it was very apparent that my network wasn't as big as I thought it was. And the value I had wasn't as rich as I thought it was. And it wasn't a, oh man, woe is me type moment. It was a, because I was present and I was taking in the information I was given and going, all right, well, how do I do this? And towards the end, they were like, oh, well, we're also looking for this. But the number one cause of this summit of people was for water. Being here in the United States, pretty wealthy country itself, you wouldn't think water, clean drinking water, would be such a hard thing to come by. And it was. And these mayors were talking about it. And then one of the mayors is over the city where my wife's hospital is that she works at. And occasionally they go on water restrictions because the water is cloudy and it's not safe to drink. It's a hospital with 2,000 beds. So, and I never put that into perspective, but because I was there, I was present in the moment. I knew about this situation, but I never put it in perspective, even when my wife told me. So was I fully present with my wife? Did I start looking for solutions when my wife threw out a problem? And this is how we can constantly explore. Because again, for me, the hat I'm wearing today is my company. It's ProSense. And ProSense is all about the trade industries. And it's all about here in the US, or I'm not sure if it's global, but we call it LEED certification. So it's water conservation, recycling, zero waste, clean energy, all these different things. And I've always focused on the electrical, the HVAC, refrigeration, but water, the fundamental source of life, was something I left behind. And I'm, coming up on a birthday here in a couple months, but almost 44 years of my life, I've taken advantage of water, have plenty of it. I've never, been without, even when I've traveled, and done the third world countries and stuff, I've always had water because they made it for those that are traveling, but those that live there didn't have it. So I was always in a privileged position. But it was interesting for me to see that and how I was able to take that directly into what we're here discussing today, which is the principle of present. And the reason I say that is because now, being 4 laws in, I've said I'm the architect of exploring, expanding my network, my talents, and my skills to benefit others, and that I can help elevate other people with me. Because I've said in the past in these recordings that I do not want to reach the summit by myself. Now, there might be some people in my network that may fall off because they're not ready to go to that altitude. But that being said, me being the architect of that, the trade industries, I've left something out. So it's allowed me to expand. And as we look to achieve generational wealth, if my network is only going to get me this much, and I think about doubling my head count, square footage, different things, I'm not going to double my revenue. I'm going to double my risk, but not inherently double my revenue. But now with this right here, because of being present in the moment, knowing where my weaknesses are and where my strengths lie, I was able to find a new opportunity where it's just a slight pivot of me expanding into growing a resource and a connection base that can help bring solutions to these folks. And for me, that can easily generate, an extra $7,500, $300,000 a year in revenue. If I, maybe not this year, but in year 2 or year 3, I can do those things because if I'm looking at the metrics. But again, I have to go back to the second law, the law of exchange. I have to create a fair exchange. I can help connect you to these mayors that these people may not have access to. And I can help these mayors meet these people that have solutions. And how do I broker that? And because in that, the law of fair exchange, and because we're all working on the same amount of hours, I'm now taking my active hours and my resources and partnering with someone and borrowing some of their active hours. And that might be from one person or 2 people or 10 people or even more. So now my ability to work has grown. And the laws show later on, and we're not going to get into it in this 10-week series, but it is something to think about as you go through the laws after this is over. And you may already have this one here, but it's the law of the straight line. And it talks about active hours versus someone, other people's active hours, or investing where money is working for you. And so this right here is now showing the breadth of how these laws are connected, so ingrained to each other, but you have to be in them almost daily. And it's not to say you have to study this every single day, because there are laws I listen to and I don't really hear them. I listen to them, but I don't hear them. And there's a fundamental difference between those two. And with this one here, if you are truly in the moment, if you're truly present, you can hear more and learn more, which is going to help provide you the resources and time and network to expand what you're trying to do. I know in the past I've spoken about, talk about what you're the architect of. Put it down on paper, do a storyboard, whatever it may be, whatever it helps to give you a visualization. Whether it be real estate, a real estate agent is proficient at one thing, and that's selling houses. They're not the loan originator. They're not the inspector. They can't do those things, because if they do, they're creating conflict and they're creating overlap, which creates liability, which opens themselves up for lawsuits, and you don't want to do that. So you got to build your team. I know with Mary, it's, she loves baking cakes, and her design and eye for that is really amazing. I've seen her stuff on Facebook and I try to like it every time I see it. But with that, there is a task that she mentioned last week that are just, blah, she doesn't want to do. So how does she get these things? And whether it's commercial kitchens, friends and family doing different things, but how do you keep things at a level of not perfection, but at a level that's obtainable from all people, where it's 80%. Again, I'm tying in other laws further down the road, like law of the lock. But we can't look for perfection, but we can look to expand. And as we expand, we're filling in those gaps. And the quicker we are identifying those gaps as the architect of what we do and how we do it, And again, whether you're a W-2 employee, a small business owner, an entrepreneur, and there's fundamental differences between the three of those, you have to know where your resources lie and how to utilize that. Yes, I own two companies, but I am a W-2 employee. I don't hide that. I'm not ashamed of it, because for me, I like other people's money. If I can go work for someone and become very proficient at what I do with that W-2 job and make my household income in, less than 25 hours a week, that gives me hours to do other stuff without having to put a strain on myself or other people by going out and saying, hey, I need capital. I need a cash infusion as I'm still building this. But as I'm building this product, solution, this company, I'm making it better for when I do say go out for a round of funding, or when I do decide to sell it, because I have a better portfolio. And that right there could be in itself how generational wealth happens. I could for myself and my two business partners, it's by having a fuller portfolio, a fuller product line, a fuller offering of solutions, it creates that asset. And you'll hear Dan or Viceroy talk about not building a product, because products everyone has, but building the asset. And you have to look at that differently, because the asset could be a variety of different things. It doesn't have, doesn't just have to be IT, but the asset could be the intellectual property, the contracts that you have with people. Those could be the assets. But what is it, and where does that value lie for someone else? Because as you think about these things, and again, being the architect to the principle of present, this is that tie-in. It's allowing you to really look at and find those things that are valuable for other people. Because there are people in the alliance that say, oh, I don't like the alliance because I didn't get this round of funding. I didn't get this investment. Well, I've offered pitch decks to get feedback, but never asked for funding. I've always been looking to grow, and people have been pointing out these things because I've been present when they've talked to me about where the weaknesses lie and what things, if I go to present to someone, what I need to present. And when you know what these things are, it allows you to be present in that moment to be able to articulate, formulate, and propose the solution for that investor or that that buyer of the product or business that you've built. Because if you're not creating a business that you can exit, I like to refer to Jason Duncan, exit without exiting, the gentleman who brought me into the alliance. All you're doing is you're building yourself a business that will only be as good as you are. But when you can have that architect, have the law of exchange, and have people working for you, whether they're an employee or a partner or an active resource within your network, and then knowing where your open cycles lie, that right there is helping you know as you move forward and now into the principle present, where you need to be present in each moment. Like when I go and sit down with my CPA in a couple of weeks, she's already sent me a list. This is what I need. I have a CPA. I have two businesses, and she also does my personal taxes. We will spend probably about 90 minutes doing all three of those. And that's because I was present when she showed up by having everything ready for her. So I'm providing her time where she has other clients. She might spend 6 to 7 hours on doing the same 3 type tasks because they were not prepared. So I promise you, my rates for my CPA are better than most others because I'm always prepared. I'm present when they arrive. And that's present for anyone that you work with or anyone that's working with you. You have to be ready to provide them the solutions or the information that you have about that. If you cannot do that, if you're fumbling around going, I don't know, I didn't hear back, and you're shifting blame, you're not owning it, you're not present. It is okay not to know everything. But if you can say, hey, these are things I do not have, you say, I was not able to get this here before they arrive. That way they are ready to either provide another solution or get you moving forward. And in this one here, this law, if you go back and listen to the others, you can see that I'm really tying this into my own personal life, because this is one of these things that I had to keep living. And that's why it's so personal for me, is because I have to be here. And, and for everyone I do business with. And I want people to be present for me when they ask for my time. And that's why when I do discovery calls or one-on-ones with, first time bellwethers, just like 15 minutes. And I'm like, I honestly do not care about the business. I care about the person. Because I promise you, if I know the person, I will remember maybe the business. But if I don't know the person, I'll never remember the business. And that is, for me, how I can become present. It's not, some people may say that's very harsh or brash. And I'm like, it's just the way my mind works, is how can I be a resource for other people? And when people, come out like, hey, I do this. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. Who are you? You got kids, you got, family, where are you from? Things like that there that, I've never been to Australia. I'd love to go. Never been to Bali, but I know Janet Hogan. I see her beautiful mural every time she hops on the screen. I'm like, oh my God. So, I remember things about those people, and I kind of know what they do. But isn't it so much better when you say, hey, I've got someone that I want you to meet that does real estate. They're up on the west coast of Canada. I'm not sure, if there's a specialty or anything there, but wouldn't it be nice to say they're a great person? I think you'll really just love to connect with them. Oh, that'd be awesome. Because now it's not about what they do, it's about who they are. And when you meet someone because of who they are, as opposed to what they do, it creates a different dynamics. Everybody wants to meet a billionaire. Everybody wants to meet a celebrity because of who they are, not because of what they do. And there are a lot of celebrities out there that are probably really good people, and there are some that are not so good people, but I'd rather meet them because of what they do or who they are as a good person, as opposed to them portraying something. And that when you're authentic to yourself and the architect and all those things moving forward, it ties into this. You're present. You're fundamentally present in that. And you can say, all right, well, this is who I am. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're one of, how many billions of people on this earth? I can't make everyone happy. Oops. Oh, well. But, and that for me is, some people say that you're very arrogant. No, I'm very conscious of my time, and I'm humble. But, if you're not going to meet me with humility because your abilities trump your humility, then, it's not going to be a good fit. But you have to be, obviously proud and boastful about what you do, but it is hard to figure out what you do. You have to figure out what that why statement is, what that me statement is, what that drive is, what your passion is. And once you figure that out and how to formulate that to other people, it's amazing how people start gravitating to you. And now you're figuring out how the law of exchange happens. You figure out how the law of open cycles works. And when you figure out how the law of open cycles works, because you've created a fair exchange with other people, you can truly, fully be fundamentally present when you go and sit down with your accountant, your marketing person, your whoever it may be, and you say, all right, how can I help you? And they're like talking to you, maybe in Chinese, it seems like. My accountant talks to me and she's referencing, financial terms I'm not all that familiar with. And she'll see that I get this glazed over look like a deer in the headlights and kind of laughs at me. She goes, oh, well, this is what it means in a fifth grade level. I'm like, okay, well, I can get that for you. But I can be present for her and she can be present for me. And that right there is creating that fair exchange. That right there is utilizing each other's times to the best of your abilities. Because if I'm not utilizing my time to the best of my ability, and I'm not utilizing the resources around me, it's time to the best of their ability, not what my abilities are, to the best of their abilities. There's a lot of wasted space where money's just flying out the window that we may never see. So I'm going to pause because that was a long rant. So I apologize. But as always, I want to make this a conversation, whether it be the law of the architect, the law of exchange, the law of open cycles, or the principle of present that we talk about here. Is this something that, you're either thriving in or you're like, oh, I need a little help with being present for, people. What is that thought for you? And anybody can go.
I always have something to say, so
All right.
say something. So I've been in sales for 30 years to cover my dimes. Not necessarily being the salesperson, but usually the sales strategist, and that is my gift. I find money. I know how to help organizations make more money, and it's usually looking at a lot of different things other than putting more feet on the street, right? It's usually something much more simple than just hiring more people to make the sales. And I love this principle of the present, because one of the things that I have seen repeatedly in different organizations or sales organizations is that the salespeople are always pushing forward as opposed to actually being present and listening. And trying to pitch what they have rather than listening to the person on the other side of the table and what their solutions are. And it's so fascinating, because a lot of times a company will have a solution or a product that serves absolutely no one because they never listen to their market. And trying to convey that to sales teams has been, and to CEOs to say, hey, bring me in because I can truly help turn things around for you. They don't necessarily buy it. And I think I had mentioned this before, like it's difficult to talk about air, which is what ad sales is, because that's what I'm ad sales, television ad sales, digital ad sales. Like you can't touch it or feel it. But the great thing about having a side hustle as a baker is that now I use cake as my example of, like, how to go about and sell more, or inventory analysis, all sorts of things, and being present. Because if you're on the table, at one side of the table talking to somebody about, what kind of cake that they want, if I'm not present and not listening, then, and find out that, oh yeah, they want a chocolate cake with strawberries. I'm thinking they want strawberries. They actually said raspberries, but I wasn't present because I'm thinking that I've got, an oversupply of strawberry preserves. Come to find out they're allergic, I'm going to have a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm rambling. But actually what I've done because of this law is now I'm creating workshops for people about listening to clients, being present, and knowing your market. And I'm using cake as my examples. So just wanted to say that. And actually Heather, who I know will be listening to this, like, hi Heather, because she's going to be in my first workshop. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that you say that. And it's one of the things that my entire career has been sales. And I was joking around this past weekend, because my brother's in IT, and my brother's, 8 years older than me, and always referred to me as the sales weasel. which, IT people do that. And it's also my brother. He can jab at me all he wants because it's nothing but love. But, for so many years, I worked for companies that had a product, like you said, and they're like, hey, go build us. But again, let's talk about law of exchange. They were the architect of that company because they started the company, so on and so forth. And then they created an exchange with me, trying to leverage my network for their product. And they thought my network would be a tie-in to grow their revenue. And because of that, I would try to sell, pitch, position, but only in the few cases where there was a true solution needed did the product sale actually happen. So I would try to, being entrepreneurial mindset at that time, I would say, well, can we try doing this and this? And some people were responsive. And I was like, well, we can do this with the product to achieve these goals. But this is where I started to figure out where I'm the architect of. I started figuring out that my dreams and visions for their company were bigger than their own. And when my dreams and visions as an employee are bigger than the owner or the architect, it creates conflict. It's not that they're bad people, but it creates conflict. And so that's why, I formed my company, is because I can take my visions and goals and make them as big as I want them to. And then people can latch on and help by providing solutions, not a product, but solutions. And then where I am present in that moment, like yesterday, I was present in a moment and they were not needing electricity. They were needing clean water, or how to provide clean water to more people, which is not my expertise. So I stayed there and I shut up. And it's hard for a salesperson to shut up.
Isn't that the truth?
But in that principle of present, it is a change. You have to figure out where the solution lie, because in every sale, and I think I referred to it last week, there is no first time sale that happened just by chance, unless people are just coming in to buy something that they want, not need. People walk into a gas station every day and buy wants, and no one had to sell it to them. They're like, bag of Twinkies. Oh, Twinkies. I like Twinkies. Oreos, whatever. It's a want. It's an instant gratification. But when you're able to solve someone's problem, and that's what I do now, in my W-2 job, and the account package I got, I call people. I'm like, hey, I'm the new guy that's going to be calling on you. Is there anything that you need? I'm not saying, hey, I'm mad I do this. I say, is there anything that you need right now? No? Okay. I'll check back with you in a couple of weeks. But 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 calls, hey, we've been looking for this. Can you help us find it? And I'm like, yeah, let me see what I can do. And because knowing my team that's around me, my resources, I can then reach out to them because I'm skilled at some things, but am proficient at the product, but I'm not proficient at all the products. So I can reach out to an inside person that's also assigned with that account, say, hey, can you find this for me? And then they go to work. I'm not doing that legwork. I can, but if I make another phone call and I get 2 more people that say, yes, we're looking for this, then that's 2 more. So I'm utilizing my time and resources. I'm being present for them. And I'm making sure that the people that are around me to support me and the customer are also present. And, we're creating that exchange because we're all paid to support the customer. And that right there is why I think success happens. And the people that I'm working with, they're gravitating to me at a pretty good rate, is because I'm not just calling people up saying, hey, let me sell you this, because we got a promotion on it. Yes, I'd love to get a spiff. I'd love to win a cooler or a trip to the Super Bowl or whatever it may be. But if it's not me servicing the customer and providing solutions where solutions are needed, then I'm not creating value. But the moment I can create value, I then create a customer for life. And even and that's why I kind of stay in this space, is because I have relationships from 15, 20 years ago that still call on me today. And they're like, hey, can you help me find this? And I'm like, yeah, let me, connect you with so-and-so. And it's amazing how that has transpired, but really more so over the last 6 years, that's transpired because I've been looking at more of the solutions as opposed to the sale, pushing a product that really it works, but is it the best product for the solution? And so, anybody else want to share? Go ahead.
Oh, Demi, do you want to go? You can go. I'm like Marie. I will always talk. I wanted to say there's a couple of things. One of that impacted me and I got from this was, because for me, providing value with every interaction that I have with, especially because I'm in the martial arts industry and I teach it and fitness and things. So from 4 years old upwards. So it's about relationships, and it's about, really having to try to connect, to try to get the best out of each of the student that you have. And if you're not present, obviously that doesn't work. And if you're not really listening, and so this is something I've had to work really, really diligently on, because I think growing up you kind of always just had to try to get your voice heard. So it wasn't really about listening, like what you were saying there, listening to learn, but more listening to reply. You'd hear something and you go, oh, and you just want to jump in, as opposed to just sitting back and really being present with the person and really connecting. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with this principle of present, because when you talk about doing that, I hadn't really, I think, connected it so much into the broader scheme of actually how that's going to connect to generating wealth. And of course, the more you are present, the more that you will be able to serve more, the more people will just naturally gravitate to you, because you are really at a core level helping them provide the solutions that they're looking for. And I really loved how you were saying taking time from them, because that's a big thing for me. I often think about being present in my classes or in my teaching so that I'm maximizing my time to an extent. Like if I'm here, I want to get the most out of it, but hadn't really put it into the idea of, if I'm not present, I'm actually taking time from somebody else. And that is a bit abhorrent to me. Like I don't want to be wasting anyone's time. So that was a really good one. And then the other thing that I will definitely use more is being ready and prepared, like you were talking about with your accountant CPA, is there's many interactions that I know I could be more prepared for, even if they haven't specifically asked. I know that it may come up or I may need this. And then if I have it already, and it just means a little bit more time of planning and preparing, then even if they don't ask, in my mind, I'm already more present because I've spent that time to actually prepare. I've spent that time thinking about the actual interaction with them. So when I'm actually there, I'm even more present because I'm ready. And those are things that I think will really add value to what I can give my students and the people that I work with as well. So yeah, it's a constant thing that I'm working on. I mean, I'm getting better at it. When you're in, I mean, you can't be anywhere else but present when there's punches flying at your face and things like that. So it's a very it's a very real thing when you're in classes. But to actually apply that and see and listen to you both obviously expand that out into how it really connects in with the other laws as well, but also now how it's actually going to be a critical part of thinking of it in generating wealth, which I hadn't really kind of connected as much before. So this has been awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. One thing that it's good to think about, and it's two analogies. Maybe they land, maybe they don't, but this is in response, not to learn, but try to help all of us learn. But Mike Tyson, I think, said it best. He's like, everyone has a well-laid plan until they get punched in the face. But it's also, if you're present, let's say with your marketing team or your IT team or your your real estate appraiser, or, loan officer, whoever it may be, your supplier for your baking supplies, if you're present, I think on an average, people are putting out 8 to 10 fires a day because something comes up that was unexpected. But if you're present and you've done your due diligence to try to be as ready as possible, when things arise, and this is where the law of adaptation comes in, further on down the road, I'm trying to tie in different laws, but if you're the better prepared you are, because one, you know what you're the architect of, where your exchange is, what your open cycles might be, and then now being present, if you know where that lies, you can okay, I can step away and possibly go find it and put out this fire. And because you're as ready as possible, you're never going to be 100% ready, but you're as prepared as possible. That way, when a curveball comes at you, when you do get punched in the face, when something like life happens to you, which it will happen, there's no avoiding it. When that happens, you're able to take it, adapt with it, and overcome it. But those that are not prepared tend to really have a setback or really knocked off kilter. And that setback could be a week, it could be a month, it could be, you don't know. But if you can just okay, adapt, overcome, and move forward, that is what being an entrepreneur is. That is how you adapt. Because there is not a single person that's been able to forecast or predict every single hiccup or problem that they're going to face. But I love that products and services are built based on innovations to overcome problems and create a solution. So in that moment, you might say, well, hey, I dealt with this, and this is a regular problem based on what I'm hearing from the person I'm sitting across from. This was a pretty easy fix. And if I can teach that fix to other people, there's value in that. Because as I've said many times before within the Bellwether, I gravitate more to people that have been knocked down a whole lot more than people that have never been knocked down. Because people that have been knocked down and gotten up and continue to move forward create more value for me, because they help me see where the potholes lie and how to possibly avoid hitting the potholes and make a smoother transition into generational wealth, or a smoother transition into being a better impact player or solution provider for those that I'm in communications with. So, Emmy.
Good morning.
What's up, buddy?
It's really early. It's still dark. You can probably see behind me.
Well, Catherine's got you beat. She's at 1 a.m.
Oh, okay. You win. So this one frustrates me because I'm trying to build a team and build things out in my network bigger. And I am incredibly present when I am meeting somebody new, or we're trying to figure out if we can connect and do things together to build. And I'm finding a lot of people are not present, and it's incredible. And even for a split second, when they go somewhere else, it frustrates me. Like, come back.
Yeah.
So anyways, this one has made me, I think, ultra aware of that. I don't judge or do anything with that towards people, because they've got their own things going on, but it's just making me a little more hyper focused with the kind of people that I want to connect with. And and I've noticed it with a lot of the conversations that I've had, and it's almost like it's steering me towards the people I do want to be connected with versus the ones I don't. So that's kind of how I've been using it and what it's doing for me right now.
Yeah. Well, it is one of those things when the law frustrates you because it's, your pet peeves. And I won't get into my pet peeves with, my wife. But it's, there are things that absolutely aggravate the snot out of me that she does. And I know there are things that I do that absolutely aggravate the snot out of her. But you got to communicate it. You can say, hey, it may not be in that moment because it may not be the right time, but at a later point where it's not the time, sometimes you just do have to rip up the Band-Aid and say, all right, well, listen here. But when you're able to communicate that, because some people are just unaware. And that's why for me, these laws, there are some that, I lean on more than others, is because I'm more acutely aware of my shortfallings. And that allows me to, better center myself, stay focused, and be present for those people. But some people, again, might be just unaware because of the climate and that they were raised in, the climate in which they work in, or whatever it may be. But if we can say it in a way that's going back to the credo, treat others the way we want to be treated, and say, hey, I noticed this and it kind of bothered me. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. And they're like, okay. And maybe they don't change the next time, but they might remember that. Because, for those that have had the opportunity to sit with Mary Lynn Zimmer, it's all about love. And if you can reach to someone with love and saying, hey, it might help them open their eyes to be more present. But, I'm going to identify with you as two guys. It's hard to, sometimes be open with that. Sometimes I get a little bit more brash and be like, you suck. But yeah, it doesn't create a warm, welcoming feeling. Yeah, Catherine.
I thought I'd raise my hand because I do want to interrupt, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to add on to that as well, because I'm obviously in a little bit more of the people industry and coming out of obviously the pandemic and COVID and working with little ones and then adults as well. It's really challenging for a lot of people now to maintain focus and to be present, because they've so been ingrained and trained to have their focus on phones and things, and so we're losing the ability to focus. Is almost like a lost art for a lot of people. So to be really present for a while and connect and maintain eye contact, it's lost for a lot of people. So for me, I know in my role, I've had to be like what you were saying there as well, Matt. Send love, be as present as I can be, because that sends out the energy as well, like that connection, and then you being present and you having that understanding, you're actually helping to educate them as well. And that's one of the things that I feel our role is, because we know more, is to help them. And with that understanding that coming out of this, there's a lot more people that are lost and that don't have this ability to even just focus on one task for a minute before they're constantly now. It's I think that's helped me a lot, because I've seen it from the little ones who really manifest these things really, straight away, to adults who try. But it's one of those things that I think the more present you are and the more that you have that understanding, the less frustrated you'll be as well, and the more you'll be able to just have that energy go out, and it'll just keep coming back a little bit more and more.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Well, I also, I think children are the best teachers. I really do. Because as adults, we have fears. Children don't have fears. Oh, but when you have fears, everything that you do is predicated on a fear. Aaron does a really good talk about it, Aaron Ellis, about fears and how they've created a condition. And that condition can be learned or unlearned. But we have to think about that. And like, as you talk about, being martial arts and stuff, and like, I have a son in the martial arts, and he's been in it for 4 years, and he's tried to quit because he just got frustrated. And I said, do you want to be good or you want to be great? He said, I want to be good. I said, then you just got to show up to class and try. You're not going to get it every time. I said, if you want to be great, you're going to have to practice at home. I said, you're going to have to put in additional time and effort to be great, like the people that you like at your class. But if you're not going to do that, don't ask for great. But as long as you're willing to put forth the effort, I'll take you. I'll pay for it. But if you're not going to put forth the effort, then that's fine. But, there are a lot of people that say everyone has to be great at something. This is just, a discipline. It's teaching him discipline. It's not teaching him to be Bruce Lee. This is teaching him a discipline, and which is a life skill that may better him and put him in a much better position than I've ever been. But only time will tell. And as a parent, we try to protect our children because of the fears of the big bag news and all these things that go on. All these things were happening when we were kids, but we just didn't know about them because we didn't have information coming at us every single second. We didn't have the world at our fingertips. And I literally say the world. I can get on my phone or computer right now and see what's going on in Australia or Bali. I can see what's going on anywhere in the world. And I can find bad news. And it creates a fear. And I don't want to live my life in fear. I want to live my life in hope. But it is hard. And Principal Present allows you to say, all right, again, where am I present at? And because if I'm present in what my skills are and not what someone else's skills might be, where my weaknesses are, I am eliminating my fears and able to pursue. And I'm like, well, my fear is accounting and CPAs, even though I'm really good at math. I'm really, really good at math, but accounting is a different language. I can say my fear, I can shift it over here to this person, and I can help that person become better. So, that's just a good thing to look at as we go get ready to close this out. But in the Principal Present, and as we go into next week and into these next 6 weeks, it's really, really good to think about the Principal Present and the law of exchange, law of open cycles, and then next week is law of separation. And hopefully everyone's gotten the laws. I'll make sure that I try to go through. I think I sent out the first 5. I need to send out the next 6 or so. But make sure you've got them in type. You've got the PDF version of it. That way you can read through it. You look like you haven't got it, so I'll check.
Yes, yeah. If you can send, because
Yeah.
I haven't received it. Thank you.
Yeah, but I'll make sure that you have a PDF version so you can read it, because I know everyone learns differently. And if you want to make notes on it, whatever because it's all about learning. If we learn something, I can apply it, and then we can be present in it. But next week is a good one, and I might struggle with it a little bit. It's the law of separation and the law of hindrance. But again, I think the law of separation is really, really good, because if you look at law of open cycles, and then what's in between the law of open cycles and the law of separation is Principal Present. If you can truly separate your accounting from your financials, again, accounting and financials some people might say they're the same. Some people might say they're different. But if there's 2 different ways, whether it be inventory versus payroll, obviously they tie in, but you've got to learn how to separate different things. And then going back to the law of exchange and making sure you have people that can manage these things for you. Or if that's your skill, you manage it. But where your weaknesses lie, make sure that you're truly creating a separation, saying, all right, you handle this, which again is part of the law of exchange and the law of open cycles. But we're just over the hour, so I want to say thank you. If anyone else has any comments, we'll let it go for a little bit longer, or we'll stop recording.
Thank you so much for your time as well. It was awesome.
Awesome. All right, well, let me hit stop recording.